I'm Doug Martin, the President and CEO of Nest Entertainment. We're excited to present to your family our first full-length animated feature film, The Swan Princess. As a company, we are committed to providing the best possible family entertainment that is wholesome, uplifting, and worthy of your trust. As you know, children love animation, and through our half-hour video series, we're proud to provide your family with character-building stories from the Bible and history. Each story we produce is fun and entertaining, but most of all, every story teaches moral values and characteristics that will change lives forever. As a customer, you've helped make The Swan Princess and all of these Bible and hero stories possible. We thank you for your support. Now, we want to share some exciting behind-the-scenes events that went into the making of this classic film, The Swan Princess.
What a good idea, it's such a charming and romantic notion. This is my idea, such a good idea, what a good idea. Such a powerful and magic potion. This is exactly my idea.
The birth of this exciting motion picture actually had its beginning in 1985 when Rick Rich left the Walt Disney Company to work with Jared Brown and Selden O. Young, producing animated stories from the New Testament.
I'm sure we'll look back when we view the Bible stories with our grandchildren, and we'll remember the years of creating them as the best years of our lives. These many stories on the Old and New Testament were a wonderful effort of love and talent that brought some of the most exciting Bible stories to life. We gave our hearts to producing these Bible stories, but we had always wanted to do an animated feature. During the 5 years we were doing the Bible and hero stories, we had time to find and develop a top animation team, along with the right story for a great motion picture.
Over the years, many stories were considered and researched, such as the story of Rabbit Hill, a fantasy story about boy pirates, and The First Dog. Finally, Rick and scriptwriter Brian Nissen began working on the German folk story, Swan Lake.
I remember Rick and I were struggling as we were trying to put this story together. But it was a classic. We knew we wanted to do it. We knew that other companies wanted to do it as well and had also run into problems. And then one day on the freeway, on the way home, I can picture the exact spot where we came up with this line that Rothbart would say, "Tomorrow night, there will be no moon."
You see, you've forgotten one very important thing. Tomorrow night, there is no moon.
And that was it. Once we had that line, I think we solved all the major problems that were inherent in that story.
After many drafts, the script was given to Jared Brown, the executive producer for the Bible and hero stories.
Well, when I first read this story, it was like going back in the time of real magic, of the fairy tales that my mother used to read to us or tell us as our bedtime stories, and of course this was before the days of television. Well, I knew when I first read this story that it was a winner, and I also knew that we needed to begin the production immediately. So we started on it, and then we relied on our faith and our total commitment, and in the end, we made this miracle happen.
Artists were hired, and the expanding studio began to flourish on the $2 million that were initially committed. The show began in 1992. By the time the film was finished and released in November 1994, over $45 million were raised through the unending effort of Selden O. Young, who became the film's executive producer.
Raising $45 million was a very difficult task in the last 3 years. As an independent studio that's never produced a movie before, we had to see a lot of people to get interest. So I spent an inordinate amount of time on an airplane, over 500,000 miles, visiting with 15 or more banks to try to get them to finance us. And so it was a very tough time in our lifetime, and will probably go down as history in my lifetime as the toughest time in raising any kind of funds or doing business.
In animation, unlike shooting a live action film where post-editing can make or break a film, everything must be planned to near perfection because of the astronomical cost of every second of animation. The story is everything.
In animation, we do extensive planning. My late mentor, John Lounsbury, who was affectionately known as one of the 9 old men at the Disney Studios, always told me that great animation can't save a bad story.
The story continuously evolves from concept to script to the development of the characters, which are actually sculpted into lifelike models for the artist to study. Voices are recorded, and then the animators go to work making the characters as real as possible. The storyboard is constantly updated. Then rough animated pencil sketches begin.
Get moving, Slowpoke.
Slowpoke?
These are refined in the process called cleanup. Then the real magic of animation comes to life when the full color backgrounds and painted cells are finally added.
Any luck?
To the rescue, mademoiselle!
Well, as far as the design goes, we start out with a character that looks pretty similar to a real puffin, with a really long beak and small eyes, and he looks a little more realistic as a puffin. And then you evolve him and make him more cartoony and add your own kind of touches and your own style, and pretty soon he evolves into a more pleasant design. As you draw him, he just slowly evolves. The more scenes you do, the more changes that are made.
In supervising the layout department, we work with the director, figuring out how we want to stage the film from scene to scene, how the scenes are going to cut together. We design the backgrounds that are going to be used for each particular scene, and we set up the character layout to work in that scene, which the animator will then take and work from. So this is the one area where it's all put together in one spot.
The design and the sound of the great animal were another difficult balancing act to get right.
We worked on getting the right sound for this creature. We wanted something that would give suspense and be scary, but at the same time we didn't want to terrify or give the little kids nightmares. Then I came to Rick with a combination of 3 sounds mixed together that came from our extensive sound library. The first is a lion growl that was electronically altered. The second was a metal screech, and the last was a high-pitched cry from a crow. Then we put everything together, and this is what we came up with.
A great animal.
On the Foley stage, the sound of the flapping wings was created by opening and closing an umbrella. Wooden sticks were broken when the great animal breaks the tree limb and attacks Derek. With the musical score and electronic alterations added, this scene becomes unbelievably real.
A lot of the material that we work on is kind of rough to work on. I mean, it's explosions, gunshots, a lot of tough stuff to deal with. You know, when you walk out and it kind of hits you a little bit, and you have to, takes a little while to recover from all that. And it's just such a nice thing, again, to work on something that you can enjoy working on. I was really looking forward to working on Swan Princess. We'd been talking about it for years, and when it finally came to pass, it was just really, really a special project for us, and I really enjoyed it.
The biggest scene of the picture was a production number called Princesses on Parade. We knew that to make this work, we actually would have to choreograph the number. A choreographer studied the music and developed the dance sequences, which were then actually filmed and used by the animators to create these beautiful scenes.
Beauty and glamour and breeding unmatched. Princess
hoi polloi, and those well-bred agree each enjoy a royal pedigree.
Born for success.
Each possesses a spa, each a remarkable man.
Every great animated film has some special effects that set it apart from every other film. The Swan Princess had many of these breathtaking moments. Probably the most stunning is the scene coming to the water and castle. The idea was borrowed from the film trailer that was shown in theaters 1 year before the film was released. This awesome special effect was created by a combination of painted backgrounds and computer graphics. One of the problems of the story that was quickly discovered was that many of the scenes are staged at night, because that is when we see Odette in her human form. The show had to have light added, or the feel of the picture would have been too dark. The process of painting backgrounds for the animation was changed to put more light around the characters and fading darker off center screen.
Even though we have night scenes, there's still a very light feeling to it. He doesn't want to be heavy or dark. He wants to keep that fairy tale kind of a flavor and an upbeat feeling in the picture.
Some of the characters came a lot quicker and simpler than others. You know, with Derek and Odette, we fought for a lot longer on trying to create something that was different looking, but we found appealing and believable. Some of the other characters, Rothbart, once we actually got serious with deciding what he was going to look like, we spent a little time kind of searching out everything, you know, doing kind of a scattershot approach where one moment he was a short, hunchback character to a long, skinny, sophisticated looking character, and then when we had it, it was pretty obvious he was a lot easier because of the caricature involved.
The character of Rothbart, played by one of the best-known motion picture bad guys, Jack Palance, was not only really nasty, but the evil was without any comic relief. Originally, Jack's voice was recorded for the Song of the Castle scene.
How dare they try to cross me? How dare they try to wreck my plan?
But the feeling was too evil and dark and needed to be lifted and lightened.
To even think that they can. After years of careful planning, now I must alter my course.
Composer Lex de Azevedo and lyricist David Zippel had the idea for the song No More Mr. Nice Guy. After looking everywhere for the right performer, producers Rick Rich and Jared Brown agreed that Lex should sing his own song.
Rick, that was just a demo. I never intended to sing the final version.
I agree, Lex. But we haven't been able to find anyone to match your performance on your demo. Hey, you were born for this. Now come on, give us a performance.
Okay, here we go.
Up till now, I've pulled my punches. I intend to eat their lunches. No more Mr. Nice Guy, not for me.
The mood was lifted, humor was added, and the song gave a wonderful opportunity to use fun visuals of Rothbart's bad guy antics that were transported from night by his magic to broad daylight.
Now, sirree!
It worked with the character perfectly.
Well, Rick and I agreed from the very start that the music of this film was absolutely critical. So we had Lex continue writing and recording until both of us could agree that it was exactly right. The hardest number we worked on was a love ballad, and Lex wrote song after song, but we just felt that nothing was equaling the miracles of love from the animated stories of the New Testament.
Has come into my life, as simple as a hand on mine, as clear as eyes that shine.
Finally, he and David Zippel wrote a variation on that song that was called Far Longer Than Forever. As soon as we heard it, we knew that they finally had it exactly right.
I'll hold you in my heart. It's almost like you're here with me, although we're far apart.
Far longer than forever, as constant as a star. I close my eyes and I am where you are.
And of course, a lot of other people agreed with us because at the Golden Globe Awards, it was one of only 5 songs that was nominated for the year.
Far Longer Than Forever from The Swan Princess. Music by Lex de Azevedo and lyrics by David Zippel.
During the final stages of scripting, while the characters were artistically being developed, choosing the voices became an obsession. After searching through lists of hundreds of known actors and actresses, auditioning began to find the perfect matches between the designed characters and voices.
It's a pleasure, Lieutenant Puffin. I'm Odette, Princess Odette.
52 out of 52. Well done, Derek.
What have I done to you? Forgive me, Odette. Forgive me.
How I'd like to run. This isn't my idea of fun.
Hey, John, that's going to be great. Hey, let me just say that the only thing that we can really capture in animation is an attitude. And so all those facial expressions and that great body language that you have, we need to make sure that it's in the voice. That is what the animator will pick up on and animate. Okay, let's start laying them down.
Getting a total match with voice and character action is what brings the animation from a two-dimensional flat medium into something that seems even more real than a live-action film.
Just say, Monsieur Rothbart, I'd like to leave now. Do you have a map or something?
Over the years of directing hundreds of voices for animated features, along with our Bible and hero stories, we have tried to perfect the technique of voice realism. That's what makes our audience believe that the characters are absolutely real.
The internationally known voices that were selected for the main characters are John Cleese, who plays Jean-Bob the French frog.
To the rescue, mademoiselle!
Stephen Wright, the slow-talking turtle Speed. Sandy Duncan for Queen Uberta.
Welcome to our fair kingdom, dear William.
And Jack Palance as the evil Rothbart.
It's fine with me. Just fine with me.
Each of these incredibly talented people brought something beside what was scripted to give the film a perfect creative touch.
Now, I know some of you, including my son Derek, just abhor beauty pageants, but having been a puff-puff girl myself way back in 39, well, I just couldn't resist. Girls, and a 1 and 2 and a 1, 2. Whoa!
When the voice of Sandy Duncan was recorded, she was especially attracted to the humor of the pushy Queen Mother Uberta, trying to get through the crowds at the ball.
Queen's coming through here. Excuse me, excuse me. Rogers, Rogers, who is it? Do you know her?
I don't know.
Come now, Rogers. I know he confides in you. Who is it?
This line was an excellent example of John Cleese's wonderful sense of on-the-spot wit that was added.
Remember, if anything happens to her, I'll have you whipped, flogged, put on the rack, and then have your back legs fried in butter.
Stephen Wright's deadpan humor stole the show with the slow-talking turtle Speed.
Would you like a kiss too, Speed?
Nah. I'm happy as a turtle.
Pour it quickly.
Easy for you to say. Ouch.
His slow timing against the staccato-paced Jean-Bob made a perfect contrast for his self-confident, humorous, yet wise character.
I think I pulled a muscle.
I'm gonna die! I know it! I'm on a dangerous mission with a lame turtle! You're gonna get us all killed!
When we recorded Jack Palance, we were all amazed. You know, when we started the filming session, it was done for promotional purposes, but as he got into that character, it was absolutely unbelievable to watch his facial expressions.
In the hundreds of voices that Jared and I have recorded in the Bible and hero stories, we had never seen any face so expressive. In fact, I had never seen anything like it in my entire career. We took these scenes and actually captured many of Jack's expressions photographically for the artist to use to bring Rothbard's character to life.
Went and pledged your love to another. I made a vow of everlasting love. You made a vow, all right. A vow of everlasting death.
I grew up loving the Warner Brother cartoons and their character gags from Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, Sylvester, and all the rest of those wonderful characters. Well, as we got well into the story of Swan Princess, I felt that we just hadn't included enough of those kind of gags and humor, so I asked Rick to have everyone in the studio come up with at least one gag or joke so that we could get the audience really howling.
Everyone put their heart into getting every possible laugh out of these characters without hurting the story with misplaced jokes. We had many suggestions and we used every one that fit.
Most of the humor and gags were on a child's level.
And growl ferociously. I want you to strike fear into my heart. Not you, Wesley. You're a rabbit, for heaven's sake.
Yet many appealed to adults.
I'm an artist, not a bore. Could have fooled me. Bonjour, madame. Aha! The ladies still fall for me.
Then there was the scene of Rothbard doing a one-arm push-up that became Jack Palance's trademark from the Oscar Awards.
Very little is ever cut or edited from a finished animated film. Once animation is completed, changes can cost as much as $500,000 a minute. So anything cut or changed is almost out of the question.
But with the breaking news story of a disaster associated with the feature film The Program, where a teen copies a film stunt and was killed, the scene of Derek and his sidekick Bromley was changed from this original footage to give Bromley a full suit of armor. This change was made so that no one would copy this trick unless they also wore a full suit of armor.
Well, initially we discussed just cutting out the whole scene, but we found that we couldn't eliminate it because the end of the show was dependent on Derek getting the arrow from Bromley so he could shoot the great animal. So finally we decided that we would reanimate the entire scene, which in the end it was actually a whole lot funnier with that armor. But the main thing was we didn't want someone hurt by copying the scene.
The Swan Princess is the last major animated film that has actual painted production cells. The word cell is short for celluloid, which is a clear plastic sheet that the characters are painted on and subsequently placed on backgrounds and filmed one by one to give the illusion of movement. Animation art from past films and cartoons is in great demand, with collectors' interest making many of the production cells extremely valuable. The Swan Princess is the last of fewer than 40 films in all of animation history with actual hand-painted cells. To save time and money, animation color for feature movies is now computer-generated, making hand-painted cells increasingly rare. Over 100,000 cells from The Swan Princess have been cataloged and authenticity certified from each scene and frame as they appeared in the film. These limited production cells from The Swan Princess are now available through animation art dealers or directly from Nest Entertainment. One of the most important areas of an animated film's success is product and video licensing. Co-executive producer Matt Mazer was integral in the extensive licensing of the characters and other facets from the film, as well as setting up focus testing with audiences across the country for helpful market research.
Product licensing is a creative area that is absolutely essential to the success of any animated film. This is especially true today as videos are played over and over again in the home. These children's products extend the fun, fantasy, and enjoyment forever. The Swan Princess ranks as a classic, and we were able to license over 100 companies, manufacturing more than 1,000 products, which makes us the leading animated feature film licensor outside of the Walt Disney Company.
The foreign release of The Swan Princess with distribution partners such as Sony and Dentsu began in Japan with an innovative campaign featuring Japan's most popular music group, Dreams Come True. Ticket sellouts in Tokyo theaters were common as excited fans purchased tickets in advance to see the music video Eternity, which was released with The Swan Princess. The entire music video can be seen at the end of this segment. The hundreds of wonderful reviews that The Swan Princess received reflect the level of vision and commitment of the entire team.
This is the work of a Disney animator named Richard Rich, who went ahead and started his own studio, has worked on this for 8 years, and the love that he brought to it shows. I think this is the finest example of non-Disney animated feature that we've had in recent years.
I walked out of that movie on air. I can't wait to see it again. It is charming. They've got characters you can believe, and I wanted to tell my children the story, but I held back because I want them to see it. It's a dream come true. It really is.
I couldn't agree with you more. I love this picture. I think it's one of the best family movies, certainly, of the year.
The animation is so careful, and it's so textured, and it's done without all the fancy computers.
It's very, very good. The lyrics are by David Zippel, who had done the lyrics for City of Angels, and they're very clever. One of the things I like about it is, in fact, the fact that there's enough wit to sort of entertain parents while the kids are being enchanted.
And now we feel that we have a rich animation studio look, brought on by all of this talent that is learned from not only the Disney process, but from other studio processes as well.
For me, it's a degree of subtlety. The overall look or feel. There's a subtle detail to the design of the characters, the animation itself. It may be rather, it could be just as accepted by the audience for that character to be perfectly still, but our characters move just as regular humans do. And so there's a degree of subtlety, I think, that Rick brings to the table that he infects everybody with to help raise it to the next higher level.
As you've seen, animation really is the process that combines the creative talents of hundreds of people through their ideas and hard work. The director's job is to hold all of these diverse talents together to create a classic production that will live forever.
Beauty and glamour and breeding unmatched. Princesses on parade. Lovely, enthralling, and all unattached. The hoi polloi and those well-bred agree, each enjoy a royal pedigree. Boy for success. Each possesses a spark, each a remarkable maid. Boy, oh boy, these royal highnesses all have pluses, they've no minuses. Gaze upon these princesses on parade.